Now, I mean, when it relates to the idea of perception with others, with relationships, because naturally your ego is when it's going to come out the most when you're around other people, right? You can go sit in a mountain and meditate all day, and you'll be fine. But naturally, you can go spend a week with your parents or something, and that ego is going to really pop up. It's going to really come out. Because naturally, that mirror image in which you're seeing in other people is which kind of, testing where the reaction lies within yourself. And we talk about this all the time, the mirror effect of reality. But, when you're in a certain situation, and the perception of somebody else is affecting you negatively. The perception of them is not what's affecting you. That's what you got to sink into. The perception of how they're viewing you is not what's actually affecting you. What's affecting you is the trigger in which it's triggering within yourself of the perception you already have within yourself or of yourself. So if you view yourself as somebody who's a very negative, selfish person, and somebody says this to you, you're a very negative and selfish person. Naturally, if you view yourself like this already, that will trigger it. And you will get angry and you will act out in that exact role as what they're portraying. But this is not because of what they're saying. It's because of the perception you already have. The external things, these things really do not matter. The internal things is what's mattering. And the situations, the catalyst of you stubbing your toe or getting hit by a car or someone making fun of you are not the things in themselves that are causing any sort of pain or suffering. Pain maybe, not suffering. The suffering is what's caused by you from the perception which you're portraying onto whatever situation it is. We had a beautiful dream class about 2 months ago where I talked about good and bad situations. Positive and negative, right? We have a mindset where we think we don't need to go through suffering. We think life should be only good, right? Because why would we want to experience bad? But in that sense, you're telling yourself that the external situations is which has the power. Your perception is not which has the power. There's a beautiful story about a man, and I read this in a book, and he was saying, the example of this story was, the man first won the lottery, and his whole family was like, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. He's like, maybe. And then a couple weeks later, gets hit by a car, breaks his legs in the hospital. Oh, you're so unlucky. Like, how did this happen? He's like, maybe. And then a couple weeks later, his house burns down, and he survived because obviously he's in the hospital because of his leg being broken. And they're like, oh my God, you're so lucky. It's so amazing that happened, and you didn't, get burned in the fire. And he said, maybe. And from that perception is showing you that these external realities of things that are occurring are only going to affect you if your ego allows it to. If you place the judgment, I won the lottery, that's positive. I broke my leg, that's negative. My house burned down, that's also negative. I'm placing all of these labels, judgments, attachments on whatever these things may be. So, once again, everything is coming from this own perception of the deepening core, not of the attachments, right? If you lose a child, and many people have, very traumatic, but a situation which cannot be changed, and the only way you sink into the situation from the deepening sense is sinking into the reality of what just happened. Sinking into the reality that attachment is gone, and this is your opportunity to perceive it as something that may be positive for you. And this can be whatever situation, it's a bit extreme. But naturally, when you think about what's causing the constant negativity in your life, it's you. Maybe not the deepening sense of you, but this ego, false self in which you've created. Because there's something called the pain body. And we've all experienced this. We all have it. Some have it more than others. Some child get born and sometimes they're crying for a month on end. This is generally indicating that the pain body within that child is quite heavy. But it's within the collective ego of each and every one of us. And that pain body is triggered by many things. But a perfect example of this is when you get sick. Okay? I use this example all the time because it annoys me. You get sick, and the first thing you do is you reiterate to yourself that you're sick. The next thing you do is you call your friends and you tell them you're sick. The third thing you do is you go on social media and you talk about that you're sick, right? So naturally, well, firstly, we got to reiterate that you create your own reality. So if you keep telling yourself you're sick, you're never going to be cured. But secondly, there's a part of you that actually likes this, right? Why would it continue to happen? Like, why would you sit there and constantly talk about it if there's not something in you that actually likes this to happen? Like, is getting fed by it. This is the pain body. This is that negativity within you that will actually thrive, obviously, on more negativity. And when you're around very negative people, naturally, you've already come across this. But when it comes to those types of situations, this is showing you that the only way in which you can kind of step above this is by being aware of it. It's like when you get in an argument with someone and it's actually starting to calm down a bit, and they're in the other room, and you actually want to go up and start the argument again. Like you feel it within yourself, and you don't even know why. You don't even know why you're starting to get up. But that awareness of watching it is what's going to transcend it. That's it. The awareness. There's nothing else you can do in these situations. Same with your attachments. You can have attachments to a million things. Your attachments is not going to come from you getting rid of those things, because naturally the other things will come into your life and you'll be attached to those. It's about not trying to identify yourself in those attachments, right? So the label of, this is my car, this is my child, I am this. The attachment is not in the car. It's in the mindset, it's in the thought pattern, you placing this adjective, this mine, this I on top of it. That's the attachment. And that's the attachment that's just an illusion when you really think about it. So, the ego can go very deep. One thing in which I would stress, I guess, at the end of all of this is the present moment is the only way you can kind of combat this. Accepting it, being aware of that, that's being aware of the present moment. Being aware of what's in front of you and nothing else. Because the biggest enemy, if you want to call it, of the ego is presence, is the present moment. Because in the present moment, there's nothing. You just sit there. There's no attachments. You're not attached to anything. You're not worried about anything. And the way you can remind yourself of this is to go into meditation like we just did and find that presence. And then each and every moment in which you're faced with opportunities where you need to remind yourself of this, you keep doing that. And you keep doing this over and over and over and over. Because remember, you cannot set the egoless state, the state of finding yourself, of finding the true self, no ego, as any future goal. It's impossible. You can't say, I want to be egoless at this date. Because what are you doing? You're saying that there's some sort of time separating yourself from this realization. But is that realization not something you can realize right now? Right? In this present moment, just sinking into it. Right? So when you sink into silence, when you're in an argument, you're in some crazy argument with somebody, and you can just, for a second, just stop yourself. Just stop yourself. For a split second, stop yourself. Quiet your mind and just watch the situation. I guarantee you, in that situation, everything will kind of fade away. It may take practice, you may try, it doesn't work, or it doesn't work, and then you try it over and over and over and over. And you start to realize that in all these situations where there's heavy amounts of suffering and pain, and you sink into a silent zone, like what's left? There's no thoughts, they're not creating no emotion, you're just seeing it. You may still stub your toe and it's painful, but at least you're not thinking about it, you're not reminding yourself of it, you're not jumping onto this and kind of, exacerbating it. So, ego can be quite intense, and in this next meditation, we're going to get into kind of a zone. It's going to be quite a visualization. If you haven't done visualization before, it doesn't really matter if you can visualize. It's just the mindset, it's the intention. So, we're going to sit into meditation. We're going to kind of bring everything together into one, all our attachments, all the things in our belief structures, our opinions in which we want to hold on to, past situations we can't let go of, future things we're fearful of, whatever that is. We're going to bring it all into a little ball. Okay, I generally like to visualize it in the center. I think it's most effective in the center, mostly because it's an important area. But we're going to visualize it in the center, and then I'm going to get you to guide yourself into the center of that ball. A little infinite point, a little black dot, if you want to call it, if you want to visualize it that way. A black dot in which you're going to sink into. And as you sink into that, all of these outside things, you want to feel as if they're dissolving. I'm not saying it's going to solve everything today. But I'm going to say that constant visualization where you can kind of bring all of this together and be aware of it. Like I said, the awareness is the key, because naturally, when you're not setting that intention to be aware of it, it's going to sink right back into the blind spot. And the only way it comes up is in those situations which you're not really ready for, right? So we're going to bring all this together, we're going to sink into that ball and kind of feel it dissolve. And from there, you can guide yourself as you like. Okay? So we're going to get in the most comfortable position.